Welcome to the Candy Valentino Show, the podcast for founders, investors, and entrepreneurs, where we have honest conversations about what it takes to grow your business, build more wealth, and create financial freedom.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Candy Valentino Show. Thanks for tuning in with me today. Oh, you guys are in for it. I loved this interview. We are diving into the art of traveling smarter, especially when there are times when money just feels a little bit tight or the world feels a little uncertain. And today, our guest is someone who has practically rewritten the rules of travel, like things I have never even heard of. He is the modern nomad. You may know Matthew Kepnes as Nomadic Matt. He's a best-selling author, a New York Times best-selling author of How to Travel the World on $75 a Day. He's the founder of one of the most popular blogs in the world and is the go-to voice for travelers who really crave more from life and don't want to spend more from their wallets. He spent over a decade proving that meaningful, transformational travel is not about having the most amount of money, but really about making smart choices, and talks about the one thing that you need in order to save money and still travel the world. Make sure that you listen to the end where I ask him a question of specific amounts of money. If he had, where in the world he would go. He also shares 3 apps and websites that I have never heard about in order to save money on your summer travel. You are going to love this. Let's jump into it. So you guys are in for a treat today. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. This is going to be fun. So I love to travel. We've never had a travel expert on the show, let alone a New York Times bestselling author on travel. So I really want to have this conversation. And typically we start out with our audience trying to give them value right out of the gate. So we are coming into travel season. We're in the summer. Everybody is trying to book. How can someone that's looking right now save a little bit of cash when they're trying to book their summer travel?
The most important thing you can really do is just be flexible. You know, the difference of a day can mean the difference of hundreds of dollars on flights, hotels, tours. If you are like, I have to go to Europe in the summertime, well, you and everybody else, right? So, the question is, maybe you go a different day, right? Maybe there's a points a mile sale on Tuesday rather than Wednesday, or, just for some weird reason, it's $300 cheaper on Thursday than Wednesday. Or you don't fly into Rome, you fly into Dublin, or you go to London, or, maybe if, Greece this time of year is super expensive, but you're like dead set on the beach. So you don't go to Mykonos, you go to like some smaller island, or you go to like the beaches in Albania, So it's all about trying to be as flexible as possible, whether it's where you go or when you go. Because there's always deals. There's deals happening every day for destinations, for flights, for hotels. It's just a matter of like, will you be flexible enough to take advantage of them?
That's interesting. So how on earth, so you're known as Nomadic Matt, correct?
Correct.
And your book, How to Travel the World on $50 a Day, which is crazy to think about.
75 now.
75 now with inflation.
The new
How
edition
did you start this?
I quit my job when I was 25 to go backpack the world for a year, take a little gap year before I went corporate. And I just never went corporate, and I just kept traveling. And so, when I came back after 18 months, I started the blog as a way to try to get freelance writing work, in hopes that somebody would hire me and pay me, write online articles or do something just enough so I could keep traveling for like one more day. That was my whole, at that time I was 27. I had no career plans. I just was like, I'm 27. I don't want to go back to corporate life, and travel is way more fun. So I was just trying to put off growing up in some ways. And then I started the blog, and then, it was a time when Google was just starting to become good, and blogs were becoming a thing that people used to search for information. This is 2008, 2009. I was writing a lot of SEO articles, how to do X, how to do Y. And so it just kind of like ranked really well, and one thing led to another, and here we are in 2025 with a
It's so fascinating because your story is the complete opposite of my 20s. So that's why I'm like, I love this conversation, because it's kind of like one of those things where I think there's so many people that are like, what would it be to just travel the world? And how could you actually do that? Now, how many countries do you know? How many countries you've been to?
North of 100. I don't really keep track.
What's one of your favorite?
Thailand.
Thailand.
I have a lot of good memories there. I lived there for a couple of years. I always go back. It's the place that inspired me to quit my job and go backpack the world. So just a lot of like good times.
What made it so that I'm just trying to get the behind the scenes of this and what was in your head. So you get to Thailand for the very first time. What inspired you to think like, I think I'm going to quit my job and just stay here?
Yeah, I met these backpackers in Chiang Mai. Like we were on our way to this temple, and there were 3 Canadians and this couple from Belgium. And we were just talking about normal like chit chat, like where you're from, what do you do, all that kind of jazz. And the Canadians were on the road for as long as their money lasted, and the Belgian couple was just gone for a month, because winter in Europe. And I was like, well, I'm going for 2 weeks, and this is my entire vacation for the year. And then they were like, what are you going to do for the rest of the year then? And I was like, I hadn't really thought about that. And so it kind of got me thinking about that. And then I actually ran into the Canadians the next day at a cooking class, Small World. And so when I went back to Bangkok, we were transiting through, I made my buddy go to Koh San Road, which is like the backpacker, like mecca of all travel in Southeast Asia. If you ever watched the movie The Beach, that's sort of where they start off at. And all roads lead there. And so I was like, let's go hang out there. Let's go play backpacker. And we met a bunch of people, and like a couple of people that came to our next spot with us. And I was just like, this is really fun. So one day I was in Koh Samui, which is like a major tourist island. My friend got like heat stroke or whatever. So I went off exploring on my own. I was just on this beach, and I was like, I hate my job. Getting an MBA at the time. I know I'm not going to do this. Why not finish the MBA full time rather than do it part time? Take a gap year and then, be like the Canadians. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. So I came home and quit my job, and I stayed on for another few months. I did the MBA, and then I went.
Wow, that's awesome. So Thailand's definitely the top. Is there one that was like the cheapest, or some unexpected thing happened that you're like, wow, I didn't realize that you could travel for this?
I mean, once you're on the road, you realize it costs a lot less than you think, especially if you're in your 20s and you're backpacking the world. As the book says, 75 a day, 50, but back then. But now with the new edition that came out in March, 75. But Cambodia was a country that surprised me a lot. I just really liked it.
How so? What was it about there?
Everyone was just really friendly, and it was just sort of like a very hospitable place. I've always loved going back there.
That's cool.
But I don't think there's one destination that's ever was like, wow, I didn't realize you can travel that cheap, because every place is cheap if you really want a penny pinch.
That's interesting. So $75 a day now. What are some of the top summer destinations that you think about for this year? So if somebody was wanting to travel, maybe they're not in the position, they just quit their job, they have a family, but they want to travel to a nice place, pretty reasonable. Anything pop into mind that they should look into?
Taiwan's pretty awesome and very affordable. South Korea, Albania, Slovenia, Bulgaria, Romania are really affordable places. I love Peru. I mean, everyone goes to Peru, but that's also a cool spot. I think people sleep on Mexico. It's like right across the border, and everyone goes to Puerto Vallarta or Cancun, or Mexico City is now like the hot spot for entrepreneurs and stuff. But there's so much around the country that's just like really great and quite affordable once you leave those areas.
So Mexico, but not the big areas that everybody goes to. What are some examples?
Oaxaca is really great. Chiapas, which is the state like right above the Guatemalan border. The area around Mexico City is also really good. And then, Oaxaca State, everyone thinks of Oaxaca as like Oaxaca City, and but like the coast is really beautiful. The state of Durango, also really good mezcal there.
That's cool. A lot of those names that you mentioned, like I haven't even heard of. So I must be doing the touristy thing where everybody goes. But you mentioned Taiwan and Cambodia and Bulgaria. Isn't the flight to go somewhere like that like crazy expensive?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, business class flights are expensive. That's why I use points and miles. So I'm an avid collector of points, especially if you're an entrepreneur running your own business. It's really easy to just put all your expenses on a credit card and just rack up tens, if not hundreds of thousands of points per month. So you can avoid paying $5,000 for a flight and using like 70 to 100,000 points for a flight. And so that's one way to keep costs down. Otherwise, you fly economy, or you just look for deals. Those are always deals around. So I like the website, going.com, Daily Drop, and Secret Flying are three really good websites that let you, like, they search for the deals so you don't have to. And, you can just see what's going on. And then for points, there's a website called Thrifty Traveler, and they search lots of good point deals. Daily Drop does that too. So those, if you just subscribe to their newsletter, you don't have to do all the manual searching for flight deals. But the main way I keep costs down is just I use points. Especially if you're using like a multiplier, if you have an Amex Gold and you're getting 3x, 4x on your Facebook ad spend, that's going to add up real quickly.
You spoke about travel point, which I agree. I think travel credit cards are great for those people who can be on the credit card system because they don't rack up debt. I always like to make sure that caveat's there. Some people are trying to get out of credit card debt, and that might not be the best solution. But for those people who are they're paying off their credit cards every month, they want to rack up miles. Do you have a specific credit card that you like more than most?
First, yes, you should never do this if you can't pay off your bill fully each month, because travel credit cards have way higher interest rate than most other cards. But secondly, there's no great card. There are great cards out there, like everyone will talk about Amex Platinum or Venture X or Sapphire Reserve, but there's only the best card for you. So, you have to think about what is your spending like, and what's your airline loyalty like, your hotel loyalty like, and then get a card that sort of matches that. If you're super invested in, United and Star Alliance, right? Chase is the best bank for that because they transfer to United and Air Canada, whereas an Amex card only really transfers to Air Canada as part of the Alliance network, so it might not be as valuable to you as just having a Chase Reserve or a Chasing card. So you really got to think about what are your goals and what's your spending like.
I love that. So if you happen to live by an American Airlines hub, let's say you're in Phoenix, then it might make sense to just have the American Airlines card versus an Amex.
Yeah, it's always good to I'm a Delta loyalist, so I have the Delta card, but I also have a transferable points card, an Amex and Chase. I have them all because it's my business, to do this, but I don't use them all, right? And then I kind of time the bonuses, right? So I got the Amex Platinum Business this year for the first time, just because they had a really ridiculous sign-up bonus, and so it was worth it for the first year, but I don't actually use the card day to day. I just got it for the bonus. And then when it's time to renew, I'll probably cancel it.
Do you think it's worth banking points overall, or do you use them right away?
You can bank them for a little bit, but they're always devalued. So I burn through, hundreds of thousands of points per year because I'm not flying an economy to Thailand. So, I will use all my points. But points aren't something you hoard, I'm going to save them for retirement. They're not money, they're just, it's an artificial currency that the airlines and hotels always devalue. So if you need them, use them. If you're saving up for a trip that's later in the year, okay, that's fine. If they are going to be devalued, you'll have some notice. But if you're in 2 years, we're going to fly to Australia, so we're saving our points for them. That's a really long time away, and a lot can happen, and you should use your points by then.
That's good to know. Now, when we talk about staying somewhere as opposed to flights, so many people I know, they want to get an Airbnb or a VRBO. Is that still a good deal? I mean, I think the theory there is that they're saving if they have large people to get like a large amount of people to get a larger space. Are they offering good deals better than, or do you still go the hotel route?
I think those like Airbnbs and VRBOs and similar services are really good if you're traveling with a group or a family. But I tend to use a hotel. It's just more convenient. I'm also just against them in big cities around the world. They do take housing stock off the market. And it's especially problematic in destinations in Europe because they don't build skyscrapers like, I live in New York. So it's not a big deal if we have a few Airbnbs, but it is in Amsterdam where like they haven't added new housing since 1750. It's probably a slight exaggeration. But, and the locals are really against them too in big cities too. But also I find them, if you're just staying for a couple of days, like you got to go pick up the keys and they, like you can't check in till late. And where are you going to keep your bags? That's like the other thing is like, if they want you out by 11, there's no like concierge, like, oh, we'll hold the bags. If your flight's not till 8, then you got to go find a place to put your bags and pay for that, where I just think it's more convenient. Unless you're with a big group, or like a couple families. Yeah, then it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with you on the hotel. I just like if you're traveling for something, it's like the Airbnb feels more like work, right? Like you have to go get the stuff. You don't have anybody there. You can't like call and get extra towels or, whatever the thing is, there's not security there. But I do get for families, larger families, it might make sense financially to do an Airbnb. Everyone can be together and then you're actually taking food costs down. But I'm with you. I think overall the hotel feels like a better experience. That aside, have you seen, just with writing this revision, did you write the revision or was it just retitled for today's economy of your book?
It's about 80% read.
Oh, amazing. That's awesome.
So it is,
have you found anything changed since the first one? Like that you've just discovered or something that like, you're like, wow, this doesn't apply anymore that you had to shift and put into the book?
Sure, about 80% of it.
Wow.
Hence the rewrite. What I thought would, be like, oh, I'll just change some prices and, update URL, links
right.
in the book, get rid of companies that went under during COVID, do like the small little things. Turned out to, when I stripped everything away that was outdated, I wasn't left with much. So I had to rebuild everything because, in the old edition, we talked, which was from 2017, I talked a lot about round the world tickets, which aren't even offered anymore. There were a lot of like travel agencies that went under, travel discount cards, gone, the rise of points and miles as more of like a common thing. So I had to put a whole section in that. There's all these services now that help people use their points and miles to find flights availability, add those in, new insurance companies, plus, all the travel insurance companies updated their stuff for COVID, so like their policies are different now. There's all these new tour companies. Yeah, just like so much has changed that in the end it was about like 80% rewritten,
Wow. Have you seen anyone, we talk about travel and trips, and I know everybody's in a different place regardless of who's listening. Some people like to do the hotel travel, Emirates, lay flat, all the things. And some people are like, this just isn't the year. Maybe their business took a hit because of the economy or costs are out of control. Have you seen anything that like just people find joy and fulfillment from smaller travel plans or local travel plans or things that people could do if they needed to stay, but still wanted to create memories? Yeah,
I think we think of travel as something that's like, I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going to go someplace far away, that consider quote unquote exotic, and it's going to be this big thing. But to me, travel is just going places you've never been before and learning and experiencing something new. And, that could be, a weekend away upstate, or like to a national park that you've never been to, or, a road trip somewhere. It doesn't have to be this big fancy, expensive thing. It could just be like, let's get in the car with the kids and drive somewhere. Travel, just seeing something new. I mean, you could do a staycation and just travel around your city. I have a friend who's moving out of New York. She's been here 10 years. So we have this whole bucket list of things she's never done before. And, it's most of the things tourists do here in the city. But when you live somewhere, you get caught up in going to work, seeing your friends, the 9 to 5, running errands, life admin, so like on a Saturday, you're like, oh, I'm going to make big plans to go do this. And then you sleep late, you got to go grocery shop, and suddenly it's like 3 o'clock and you're like, next weekend. Next weekend never comes.
That is such a great point that I've never thought of. I used to always say when my dad would come see me, because we don't live in the same state, and he would travel to see me, I'd always be like, Dad, you see way more things than I ever have. And I've been here for 5 years or 6 years or whatever. Like, oh, did you guys go here? We just went there. Like, so many things that I've never even seen living there because, like you said, what did you call it? Life admin. I love that. You're just being the life admin. So that's really cool. I love that. I wanted to touch on that because some people who have to stay put this summer, they realize that it's all about just kind of like seeing other things that you haven't seen before. Let's go to the full other end of the spectrum, if you don't mind. Are there any like lesser known, but maybe ultra exclusive places for people that have had a banner year and want to have like an off the chain type of travel experience and maybe are wealthy? Is there anything that comes to mind when you think of like an ultra exclusive place?
And if only the White Lotus really existed.
Yeah.
As long as you're not murdered while you're there.
Oh my gosh, it was a little dark. I watched it. It was a little dark.
Every season's a little dark. There's where there's money, there's always exclusivity. There's any place can be done on the high end if you're willing to splash out for it. But it kind of depends on like how high end you want to go and sort of what you want. Like, everyone goes to St. Bart's and they go to Ibiza and they go to Saint Tropez and, all those bougie rich places. But there's like amazing, like high-end hotels and islands in Southeast Asia. The Ritz-Carlton has their own cruise ship around French Polynesia. I think it's in French Polynesia, somewhere in the South Pacific. So there are those kind of options. You can also go on like other high-end nature-based cruises. The Oman is always a popular place. And so I think that, luxury safaris, I think there's no place that like I'm going to be like, you could go here and it's going to be a secret place, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like, how much privacy do you really want? Mm-hmm. And then you kind of go from there, right? Because like everyone, if you've had a banner year, you want to go spend some money, there's a million places where you can go spend some money. I would say that I judge like what you want to do, sort of like how private do you want to be, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you want to go to Mykonos, right? Like, yeah, you can spend a ton of money in Mykonos. But it's like a party island. If you want to go to St. Bart's, it's also kind of similar. It's like Saint Tropez. But if you're like, I want to go someplace bougie and exclusive, but quiet, then I'd start thinking of like places in Southeast Asia. There's like, There's like a really nice Park Hyatt in southern Japan that's like, Okinawa has like beautiful beaches and tropical islands, and so you can stay at a nice Park Hyatt there, like super luxurious, but very isolated and quiet, And so you kind of just think about like, what do you want out of it? For me, cool. That's how I think about luxury.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like, what do you want to experience? Do you want the party atmosphere, or you want to chill and like regroup?
Because if you just want to sit in a resort, and just like get served pina coladas, and have a really fancy hotel room, there is tons of places in the Caribbean that will gladly serve that up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. That's my world. I kind of know that because that's typically what I do. I need to broaden my travel and like go out and actually do things when I actually travel. I normally am like, it's got to be a great resort because I normally don't leave the resort.
Well, there are lots of amazing high-end resorts around Africa where you can get served pina coladas that will have a pool and you can watch animals. So
that's cool.
Do that
wow,
time.
That's fun. Where at in Africa?
There's a few high-end ones. I always forget the names in Botswana. Botswana does high-end luxury safari really well, as does like Kenya and Tanzania.
Very cool. Is there any like place on your bucket list that you haven't been yet that you want to go?
Mongolia.
Mongolia. Why? How so?
Just kind of looks fun and beautiful and, different.
Wow, that's cool. Is that on the list anytime soon?
Probably not anytime soon. This year I'm going to China, Oman, and Antarctica as like new destinations. I've been to China before, but only Hong Kong and Shanghai. So I'm going like Beijing and around. So maybe next year. I don't know. It's a big world.
Okay, a couple rapid fire questions. You up for it?
Shoot.
Someone has $2,500 that they can spend on vacation. What are some of the things that maybe you think of that if that were you, you can only keep the knowledge that you have right now. You haven't been to all of these other places, but you know about them all. Where would you go for $2,500?
Mexico, probably somewhere in Eastern Europe. Thinking about flight costs too. So, assuming they're leaving from the States, Mexico, like 2 weeks. Is it just one person?
Yeah, we can say it's just one person.
Okay. One person. How long are they going for?
We'll say a week or two is max.
Okay. Yeah, definitely Mexico. They have more than enough. Peru, Colombia, Belize. Anywhere in like Central, South America would be good. Or Eastern Europe would cover it. Okay. Would cover it.
And then let's go to the other end. Let's say, we'll go in the middle. So let's say $25,000. What opens up your world when you spend that?
There is no place in the world you can't go for 2 weeks for $25,000.
Wow, for one person.
For one person.
Where would you pick?
If I had $25,000 to spend and I had to spend it.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, I'd probably just splash out at probably a luxury safari.
Okay, so one of the places you just mentioned in Africa.
Yeah, because you're thinking like $1,000 a night. That's 14 grand just for the hotel. Maybe even more. I'd fly business class. I whatever.
That's awesome. So I tell you, I did not know that there were places that you could splash out in Africa and watch animals at the same time. That sounds like heaven.
It is. It's pretty fun.
So you've done that.
Yes.
That's so cool. That's
not like super luxury, but I was more middle of the road. But yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I swear we could do this twice as long and I would still have so many questions for you. But I know that our listeners are going to want to get more information about you, about the book. So tell us where we can find everything Nomadic Matt.
Yeah, I am Nomadic Matt on every social media platform. So just /Nomadic Matt. The website is nomadicmatt.com. The book, How to Travel the World on $75 a Day, is available wherever books are sold. Whether you're at Amazon, your local independent bookstore, or Barnes & Noble, it's everywhere.
I love that. And it's out now, so they can grab it.
It's out, yeah.
Awesome. We will link all of that in the show notes. I am going to follow you. I want to see where you go. I want to make sure that we check out some of these places that you mentioned. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge with our audience. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure to go check out Matt's blog at nomadicmatt.com. We're also going to link it in the show notes here. Follow him on social media, Nomadic Matt. I know I am going to be doing this right now. Grab a copy of his New York Times bestselling book, How to Travel the World on $75 a Day. He is a resource worth bookmarking. Thanks again for tuning in and spending this time with me today. Give us a follow over on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, wherever you are watching or listening. We'll see you next time.